Boz of Harvard once hummed that Hitler would, I don't exactly remember the words he used, but it was to the effect that nothing would devastate Hitler more than to see Germany in the arms of his enemies. There's something strategic about the adoption of such a perception, which he stole from Ayn Rand, which was that had Dominic Franken, who was a va-va-voom New York Harris. And heiress, she was a pinnacle of the great estates of New York. And because Howard Rourke wouldn't, the architect that founded Isabel, wouldn't change his buildings to look colonial. She started sleeping with the people who he loathed to see if he would tell her not to. And he refused to tell her not to because he believed in freedom. And this was the woman who provided the image for the Temple of the Human Spirit, which, of course, the villains of the book tore down. So you can imagine the meditations of these fat and ugly, evil individuals like Fetterman and Thaws, and having a child who has things that he doesn't know he has and at their mercy to take and manipulate and destroy at will to maximize the suffering of the object. They do. I'm sure they do this to people in Palestine, cruelly send in reminders of what has been lost. Okay, you get the idea. So what's arrayed here is two narratives that form a house divided, a house united against itself. Over here they say Israel attacked Hamas. Over here they say Hamas attacked Israel. And it's Israel versus Hamas, when what really happened is that Egypt and Israel persuaded elements of Hamas to get the show going. Now, people in Pittsburgh and Seattle have guilt-free written all over them. Guilt-free. They went along with a hootenanny that destroyed any hope of stopping these Zionist warmongers while there was still a chance. The script of Gail Burston was written by people in Highland Park of Pittsburgh and with the help of key administrators in the Bush administration. Reagan helped authorize them by selling the idea that he didn't know Russia was in on it. And it was a two virgins war game to make men more honest and chivalrous. You may never violate a second girl. And when I say violate, it's because they assume that it's by conquest. When I let their Dominic Franken go with their virginity intact, they were furious. They came and castrated me because I wouldn't touch a girl who was unwilling to be touched. And they ravaged the Persian carpets at O'Bannon. Broke the windows, snarled sick dogs on me because I refused. So you get the idea of what's at work. Now, King Crimson, Oliver Tweedledee. Booger drops a pen-crafted card at me, which I give back to him. Or give back to his lackey, his favorite lackey. And King Zion was playing bass for this band. Unbeknownst to me, he was in on serial torments that had been visited on me as a hostage child. What Thaws and Handelman and their Dominic Franken were up to. He was one of the laser sharp spinner beanies of it. He turned it into an international who done it by siphoning John Lennon's super electricity through it. So George Bush was saying there's a pussy ball line in the sand out there in the desert, and they have people swimming to Cambodia to get that Robert card, and they have people lined up to appropriate the story, poetry thieves, and they're in allegiance with this Egypt and Israel harness on the throats of Gaza, because they are completely duplicitous. If you look at Ayn Rand's work, he just wanted to build his buildings, and the people had the money to hire him. He would build them in cooperation with them based on his understanding of what was best. If they didn't want to buy the building, then he wouldn't follow through with building it. He'd show them what he would do if it was him, and explain the money that it costs. That's all. It's that simple. And the capitalist society has sort of inveigled into this idea with the help of Ayn Rand. I mean, she was not a particularly admirable individual. To say that crushing estates are a superclass. You know, you vote because you might get a ticket to the superclass. And the people who are disenfranchised of education and health care are, according to the science of psychology, ingrates who will just take anything. The more you try to help them, the more they will turn on you. And this is the system that they have perpetuated. It's known in some circles as a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what they did was they made me deaf and psychologically adrift because they denied me education. They didn't teach me sign language. I mean, I'm an old man now, and I figured some of this stuff out. And then they exploited my talents. While behind my back, they were playing the idea that anything I did to try to assert myself as a thinking person and seeking an education in school was interfering with how they were promoting me. So, and then they evoked Ayn Rand herself. If you look in her newsletters, you see that she called this practice comprachios, which is the demeaning of children by stunting them through injury to the brain so that they can be slaves. And she loathed it. Roger Waters and Alan Parsons and Midori Goto and that owner person. See, Jeff and Warhol is the arbiter of the ticket to the high society that Obama has been the house Negro for since he became Johnny Cochran for Hitler Reagan. And they have all of this dacoitery. People who ignored the whole thing, who want to see a story in the superstructure, which is Thaw's concept. He calls it the superstructure, which is the whole media palace where Paul McCartney sits twiddling God knows what, and they see these cerebral nostril hairs that come from the nose of people like Toon, with which his magic assembly snip, and they become Brian Eno. Nostril hair. Snip Robert Fripp. And Paul McCartney says, who shall I deign to subject to seeing his loved one in the arms of his enemies next? And he has it all organized to do that to people. He's obsessive about the art of vendetta. And you can see that these people worked with the girl Gail Burstyn, who wrote the letters, just by the way they talk sideways to me. Her letters talk about Wattenacre. And he was in a gang with McGarvey and Carl and Ronco called the Gutter Snipes. And when Ringo Starr issued his clay ball ballyhoo at Carnegie Mellon University, pretending to have found Gail Burstyn stuff, she's on the cover, a likeness of her from 1979 of a King Crimson record. So obviously they knew her before Lennon pulled his Houdini. He called himself, he used an agent named Greg Star Cynic, which is cynic and arsenic, right? So this is a sort of game that they play. And they come up out of Santa Cruz, where Star Cynic was last seen, to needle me at the lunch counter. They talk sideways about, oh, where did I put that Robert card? And they have people saying, if you don't give the proceeds to me for my kidney dialysis, I'm going to have to really needle you with Ono's special agency. And this is, of course, part of the Alan Parsons project to render vivid the Royal Secret Service will of the British Empire. When King Duke Edward in the 20s came to New York City, it was a big fanfare. You can find lots of pictures about it. He said that Hollywood needed to be under the control of the Church of England. Well, these are the people from, and he was an ally of Adolf Hitler. And you know, Hitler has fallen on good times lately with his favorite victims turning into his favorite ogres, doing unto others as he had done unto them. And you have these project hustlers claiming Ayn Rand because it just means to them being spoiled babies about lots of money, stealing it if you can get a bag and empty the bank. I mean, they were working with the post office that I tried to warn they were being defrauded by Schulman. Or evidently, who knows? There's no audit that shows what the people at Seattle Clubhouse were doing with these, you know, sob stories. Oh, I was a Jewish from the post office in New York. And he was robbing the Carnegie Mellon University. And his partner in high school was Leslie Katz, the very same woman who Tony Levin pillaged the world over, drawing lines in the sand and bombing Iraq, going on 60 Minutes with Colin Powell saying, you know, doing like this here and that there, and then running two versions of Pussy Ball, blowing up the USS Iowa, blowing up the Jackson Labs, you know, and putting scabies in my clothes. Psychos that don't want to explain anything to anybody. And they invoke Ayn Rand as doing this. When a poetry thief, someone who steals poetry from a person who's deaf and has been homeless for 2 years, a poetry thief. I'm talking about a grifter. Ripper murdered an innocent bystander over a penny. And Paul Shannon raised down goes the curtain, magic curtain, up goes the curtain again for Ayn Rand. It's adventure time, little boy. It's really, really hostile to the project of education. I mean, Howard Rourke used to contribute money from his pocket when there was a difficulties fulfilling a contract because of the animosities of the gang who were passing around his Dominique Franken, you know. I mean, what does you know? And they say, well, John Lennon was the victim, and he goes, what does Helter Skelter have to do with knifing somebody? Well, evidently it has everything in the world to do with knifing somebody. That's the question. You know, Charles Manson was making pornography with the LAPD, or well, the police department in Los Angeles. And they had to clean up the scene a little bit before they could arrest him. And his psychiatrist was Jack Ruby's. And the whole idea of do you or don't you want me to make you was Tony Levin's gizmo for the whole affair. Do you or don't you want me to make you? And nostril hair Robert drops his pick and says, her virginity proves he tried. And it's a libel. And they use names like Gabbard, which is like Gabriel and Bard College, because they're women who vacillated, to use one of Thaw's words, who was ambivalent, to use another one of Thaw's words, was from Bard. So you have Tulsi Gabbard, TG, for Thaw's of Harvard. Thaw's G was his last name, Gordon. And they say +1. Did you ever notice there's all these +1s in the Elon Musk system? Like you press a heart in Twitter, it goes +1. It's all designed to the contagion war game of the AIDS attack. Bobby Kennedy probably bullied Cersei into suicide in the project. That these estate monstrosity people are coming to take us away to. And it's an indecency that's virtually unrivaled in history. That they would cut children in half and put them up on TV where other children see it and do nothing to try to stop it. Nothing. And they say this is because Ayn Rand's metaphysics of Paul McCartney's sacred penny is a line in the sand that Hustler reads the Swami Nostra vibrations about, consecrating Ayn Rand. And this is Alan Parsons' mentality. This is Midori Goto's mentality. This is Barack Obama's authorized system of protocol among neighborhood people. They have this guy named Matt Mark Utz who burned these girls' arms gangrenous with a poker from the fireplace. Who did he work for? Mr. Fred Rogers. you get whammo people, okay? Whammo is bought by black people, and that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. And they have a child come up to me 40 years ago and say, "One upon a time," an Ebonic, "One upon a time." And outside WQED. So this whole adventure, which is across the street from like Rodef Sholem, which has maniacal Israeli cement writing on doors, like as though you're going down the Himmelschweg. It's really menacing combination of aspects. And these people went around giving severe hallucinogenics to unwilling children who were not advised of what they were being fed. And brought in people like Peter Gabriel who could use theater, guerrilla theater, to advocate for the Tibetan Buddhist mentality. It's not on the level. And to have them belaboring the more significant contributions that American society has contributed to human dignity, like public schools, the Bill of Rights, so that they can make a monster movie out of the Middle East. It's highly disreputable. Highly disreputable. And if any doctor knows what that was, tell my neurologist.